Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Wendy, and today we're going to do my August wrap-up. So like I said, today I'm going to do my August wrap-up, and this month I had a variety of things, mostly due to the fact that I was doing a bingo board on Gwen's Patreon, which I will link below, and I was trying to complete all of those to get Blackout, which I did, yay! And so I really just kind of branched out of my usual genres, and it was actually quite successful. I read 10 books, which is pretty good for me because I've been teetering around 7 or so, or 8, and so I was pretty excited, and I also hit my goal, 100 books for the year, yay! And I am so proud of myself because I used to only read maybe like 20 books a year, and so to hit 100 books before it's even like the end of the year is absolutely crazy to me. I never thought in my life I could read this many books, and honestly it's because I watch like no TV anymore. Like I've just swapped all TV for just reading, and I have absolutely loved it so much. I have found so many things that just bring me joy through reading, that have brought me relaxing and stress-free, and just I have benefited so much from reading versus TV. I sleep better, just I feel like my mind is quieter, if that makes sense. So although reading can become an addiction too, and I have to be careful with that and to make sure like that I'm present, because it's very easy to get into escapism. So it's just a balancing act, if you will. So the first book I read that I don't have with me because I lent out is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is my first book by Ashley Poston, and can I just tell you, it was absolutely phenomenal. As you saw in my last TBR video, this book was picked by Gwen, I think it was July, and she did not disappoint me. This book was a 6-star read for me, guys, a 6-star read. It was phenomenal. I have now realized that I absolutely love magical realism. I listened all on audio on the way back from the beach, and it was just so good. So it follows, I forget the characters' names because books that I've read like at the beginning of the month, it's really hard for me to remember the character names anymore. But it follows this girl who basically inherits an apartment by her aunt, and she starts to realize that this apartment has magical abilities where it transports you basically to the past and the future, and it's very strange. And so she keeps seeing this guy show up in her apartment thinking it's his apartment, and she's very confused. And so of course, as you can probably guess, they end up falling in love, and she is realizing, oh no, I'm falling in love with someone that is from the past. How is this going to work out? It is so beautiful, it is so magical, and the grief representation in this book is just spot on. There are a lot of trigger warnings, so I would look them up. There is suicide trigger warnings specifically, so if that is something that you cannot read, then I would definitely steer clear. There is an amazing author's note at the end about her difficulties involving suicide and grief, and so I definitely recommend reading that if you're going to read the book. It really just made the book even more impactful to me, and so I just absolutely loved it, and it started August off with a bang. So then the next book that I read was First Lie Wins. This book was recommended to me by Leah for my TBR choice in July, and I really enjoyed this one. I listened solely on audio. I gave it 4 stars. I talk a little bit more in depth about this in my last vlog, reading vlog, mood reading. So if you want to know more about it, go ahead and watch that one. I'm not going to go into too much detail since I talked about it, but it is essentially following this girl as she uses different identities in her line of work to help steal or get information for her employer, and then her employer starts to kind of get a little shady and go after her. And it goes from there, and it is such a wild ride. I really enjoyed it. It is not, I wouldn't say it's a super big thriller book, more like a mystery book, but it was a really great time. And the next book I read was CeCe's Journal. This was my first graphic novel. I gave this 4 stars. I'm not a graphic novel person, but I did want to read this with my daughter because she absolutely loves graphic novels. And CeCe is basically going throughout her life and wanting to solve mysteries and really just kind of being a little bit nosy with neighbors and friends and trying to discover things out for herself and her friends. She kind of goes through trials with them as she's doing this, as well as her mom. And so it really documents like the trials with friendships and family that you could go through at her age and how to navigate those, but also has the fun mystery side to it of her discovering and kind of trying to put together these clues of these people that she's following around. And it is a really sweet read, and I do highly recommend it, especially for younger ages. It was just beautiful, and the illustrations were so beautiful. The next book I read was Starfish, and this was my first middle grade novel. I actually listened solely on audio, and this was for a bingo prompt on Gwen's Patreon, and I adored this one. It was written in verse, and that's why I picked it, and it was just absolutely beautiful. Really touches on fat shaming and body image and bullying, and I just really highly recommend everyone read it. I feel, especially for middle grade, it is a book that they should all read. It is so impactful. I gave it 5 stars. I was very surprised with how I felt about this book. It's just, honestly, it got 5 stars for the message. The book, I wouldn't say is the most amazing book I've ever read, but the message is so relevant to today's society and for kids in this genre, this age range, that I just think it deserved 5 stars. For the message alone, it was really well done. So I highly recommend looking into that one. The next book that I read was Glow of the Everflame. I also read this in my mood reading vlog last week, and so I highly recommend you read the Spark of the Everflame series, which Spark of the Everflame is the first book. I absolutely adored this. I gave this 5 stars. This one was so addictive. The quotes in this book are just top notch. It is such an excellent romantasy series. I will recommend this book to literally everyone. If you have not read this series and you enjoy any bit of fantasy or romantasy, I highly recommend it. And also for those who prefer a little bit cleaner reads, I don't remember hardly any spice in this book. If it is in there, it's mostly closed door. There really hasn't been, I'm in the 3rd book now, there really hasn't been a lot of spice, so it's easily skippable. And I just think that it's been a really, really fun series, and I highly recommend it. And I will say it is a little bit, the first book I feel like reads a little bit more like a YA, but the 2nd and 3rd one have kind of picked up in the fantasy, but it is just so enjoyable to me. I can't talk a whole lot about the 2nd one because I don't want to give spoilers for the 1st one, so just read it. The next book that I read was given to me by Keisha, so thank you so much, Keisha, because I adored this book, guys. This is my 2nd middle grade novel, Until Tomorrow, Mr. Marsworth. This book is so beautiful. This book is written in letters, and it is absolutely incredible. It is so beautiful. She basically is a pen pal with a man overseas in the Vietnam War, but also a pen pal with Mr. Marsworth, who is one of her neighbors on her paper route. And she starts writing him letters, and he is solely just staying indoors and not really coming out to meet her. So it is a beautiful historical fiction, but also just really pulls at your heartstrings. This is an amazing middle grade book that you would not realize is middle grade. It is just so well written and so beautiful and emotional. highly recommend this book. I gave this 5 stars. The next book that I read was Atomic Habits by James Clear. I listened on audio to this, and I will say that I think I went in with higher expectations because this has such a high rating on Goodreads. I gave this 3 stars only because I just felt like the concept wasn't that impactful for me. Like, I just was expecting so much, I think, because of the hype. It is a great book, and I don't regret reading it. It just wasn't mind-blowing. Like, it's not mind-blowing advice. And essentially, he talks about taking habits and breaking them down into smaller things to make it not so overwhelming, such as if you're forgetting to lock the door, do something different while you lock the door so that you can remember you did it, like doing that with a habit that you're trying to break, or good habits to make them really easy so that you are more willing to do it, and to take the bad habits and make them harder to access and harder to do is essentially the whole basis. I find it to be very repetitive in this book, and I just think it could have been summarized a lot more. The next book that I read was Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Guys, this one was an arc, and it disappointed me because I absolutely love the first one better than the movies. I honestly think that romances do not need a sequel. They do not need a sequel. They just don't. Like, I don't think that there's ever been a sequel to a romance that I have needed, unless it's fantasy. I understand where people like Abby Jimenez have like interconnecting worlds and they follow different characters in a series. That I get, that I like. But using the same characters and having a sequel, to me, it just didn't work. I just didn't think it was necessary. I feel that it ruined my opinion of the main characters and the things that we fell in love with them for in the first one. So I'm not going to touch much on them because I don't want to ruin the first novel for anyone. But honestly, I think it was better just left with better than the movies, and just no pun intended, but that book was better than this book. The next book I read was Belladonna. Guys, this book really surprised me. This is more like a Gothic fantasy, and she basically falls in love with death. I know, that's weird, right? Like, if you had told me exactly like what this was, I don't know if I would have picked it up. I did go in sort of blind. I knew bits and pieces, but I was just trusting some of my friends that loved this book, like Keisha and Jordan and Bethany. And I was like, okay, so me and Leah buddy read this, and I really enjoyed this. And I went through this so quickly. I was very surprised at how much I really enjoyed the Gothic elements of it. It is sort of creepy, and there are some things in it that I could have done without. There is some possession in it that I typically would never read, but because of the way this book was written, it wasn't super disturbing, but it's also something I would have preferred not to be in the book. So definitely look up the trigger warnings for this. There is lots of mention of death, obviously, because he is like the Reaper. And so there is ghost mention, there is paranormal mention, there is possession, all the things that I typically wouldn't read. But this is done in such a way that it did not creep me out. It is YA, and I just thought it was beautiful. I gave it 3.5 stars simply because I think there are some questions that needed to be answered in this book that I just don't think were very fleshed out very well, as well as the possession elements. I preferred that wouldn't have been in the book. Then the last book that I read this month was the Crescent Moon Tearoom, and I gave this 3 stars. This was an ARC that I received off NetGalley. I actually really enjoyed this. It read like a cozy fantasy. It's very much cozy. It's very slow, so go into it knowing that, but it is super cute. It's very sweet. It follows 3 sisters who are witches, and they own this tea house that they basically do readings for people, and then some things start to happen where they have to basically help people find their tasks in life. It sort of reminded me of the Secret Book and Scone Society, I think is what it's called, because they give you a book and a drink with like your issue, and these girls are giving you a drink and helping you with your issue. So like that theme reminded me of that. And so right off the bat, I was like, oh no, not this again, because I really didn't enjoy that book. I tried to stay with an open mind, though. I will say this is much more cozy than the other one, and so that helped, because I really was like, this better not get super dark, and it didn't. It stayed light almost the whole time. It has a little bit of romance elements. It has some career aspiring dream elements, and it just is beautiful sisterly bonds. Like the way that they work together and the trials that they went through really was done well in this book. I did enjoy it, but I just think the only reason for the 3-star was just that it was a little too slow for me, and for that reason, that's why I lowered it. But otherwise, it was a really great, cozy book, and I do highly recommend reading this for fall. So that wraps up, I think, all of the books that I've read for this month. Like I said, friends, I really had such a great reading month. I tried so many random things, but it was a lot of fun. And honestly, I want to read some more middle grades. Did I just say that? I want to read some more middle grades. Like, I can't believe that I'm this person right now, but Keisha was not wrong in the fact that they have some great writing in these middle grade books. So I highly recommend that you guys try them, because I'm shocked, quite frankly. So my encouragement for today. Okay, my encouragement for today, I think, is going to come from inspiration from Starfish, and that would be to always be kind to those around you, especially those struggling with some form of addiction, whether it be food or just whatever you can think of. You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know how they're being treated. In this book specifically, her mom was not treating her right. And so I just encourage you to lift each other up, to build each other up, and to speak life into everyone and to encourage them. I am someone who really enjoys encouraging people, and that is why I have really just kind of based my whole channel around inspiring you. Though it may be through books, it is just something that I'm very passionate about, to inspire people and to encourage them and to lift them up and to be a light and to be positive, especially for Jesus, who is my whole life. And even if you don't believe, I just want to always be pouring life into you and lifting you up, and I want this channel to be about that. And so I just want to encourage you to say something kind to someone that you know is going through a hard time, and to just be that friend to them. Maybe it will require more of you, but sometimes we have to really look beyond ourselves and what's going on and our inconveniences in our life, and go out of our way to really be that for someone who really is needing it during that time, and go the extra mile. So I really just encourage you to do that today. And I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I hope you found a book that you are interested in, and let me know below in the comments if there is a 5-star book this month that you just want to rave about. I would love to hear about it. And until next time, guys, remember to read what inspires you. Bye, friends.